Hi kindergarten, I'm Miss Pavlik and I teach at McAdoo Clares. Today we're going to be focusing on characters and setting. We're also going to be reviewing words like title, author, and illustrator. We can use our posters to help us remember what these words mean. When we're talking about the characters of a story, we're talking about the people, animals, or creatures in the story. And when we're talking about the setting, we're talking about where and when the story takes place. The title is the name of the book. The author is the person who writes the words in the story, and the illustrator is the person who draws the pictures in the story. Now let's talk about our essential question this week. What do you see in the sky? You see different things in the sky depending on the time of day. If you wake up early in the morning, you can see the sunrise. During the day, you might see birds flying in the sky. At night, you can see the moon and stars shining brightly. What are some things you've seen in the sky? We're going to read a story today about what a little mole sees in the sky one night. Our story is called Bringing Down the Moon by Jonathan Emmett, illustrated by Vanessa Caban. Jonathan is the author, so he wrote the words. And Vanessa is the illustrator, so she drew the pictures. Now let's take a look at the cover of our book. What do you see on the cover? Based on the picture and the title, I want you to make a prediction. What do you think the story is going to be about? Remember, when we make predictions, we make a guess about what we think is going to happen. Bringing Down the Moon is a fantasy story. Fantasy stories have made-up characters and events. I see an animal on the cover. One of the clues that can help us figure out if the story is real or made up is if the animals can talk. Fantasy stories have things that could never happen in real life, like animals talking. While I'm reading, see if you can pick out who the characters are and where and when the story takes place. Also think about the prediction you made when you looked at the cover. Sometimes we have to revise or change our prediction once we start reading. Share your answers with someone at home. Bringing Down the Moon by Jonathan Emmett, illustrated by Vanessa Caban. Hot diggity! Exclaimed Mole as he burrowed out of the ground one night. Whatever is that? The moon was hanging in the sky above him, like a bright silver coin. Mole thought it was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Whatever it is, I must have it, Mole said to himself. I know, I'll jump up and pull it down. Thump, thump, thumpity, bump. Mole was so busy jumping he didn't think about the noise he was making, and he woke up Rabbit in her burrow. Mole, said Rabbit, what on earth do you think you're doing? Hello, Rabbit, said Mole. I'm trying to pull down that shiny thing. You mean the moon? Asked Rabbit. So that's what it's called, said Mole. You'll never do that, said Rabbit. It's not as close as it looks. Let's stop for a reading check. So far, we've met two characters in the story. Can you name them? Look at the picture to help you. If you said Rabbit and Mole, you're right. Did you predict that Mole was going to be able to jump up and pull the moon down? He couldn't do it that way. Let's see what he does next. But Mole would not give up. I know, he thought. I'll get a stick and poke it down. He found a long stick and poked it up at the moon. Swish, swish, swishity, swish. Mole was so busy poking that he tripped over Hedgehog in his bed of leaves. Mole, grunted Hedgehog. What are you up to? Hello, Hedgehog, said Mole. I'm trying to poke down the moon. You'll never do that, said Hedgehog. It's not as close as it looks. Now we've met another character. What is his name? Good, it's Hedgehog. What did you think of Mole using a stick to poke down the moon? Did it work? Nope. Let's keep reading. But Mole would not give up. I know, he thought. I'll throw something at it and knock it down. He found some acorns and threw them at the moon. Plink, plink, plinkety, plink. Ouch, said Squirrel. Mole, have you gone nuts? Hello, Squirrel, said Mole. I'm trying to knock down the moon. You'll never do that, said Squirrel. It's not as close as it looks. We've met our final character in the story. Who is it? Right, his name is Squirrel. What did Squirrel think of Mole's plan to knock the moon out of the sky by throwing acorns at it? Let's read on to see what happens next. But Mole wanted the moon so badly he would not give up. I know, he thought. I'll climb a tree and carry it down. Mole had never climbed a tree before. It was hard work and he was scared to be so far from the ground. But he kept on going until he saw the moon resting in the leaves above him. Mole stretched out his paws. But just when he thought he had the moon, he slipped. Oh, eek, ouch, ooh. Mole tumbled down and landed splash in the middle of a puddle. Hot diggity drat, thought Mole. I almost had it that time. Then he noticed something floating in the puddle beside him. It was pale and wrinkled, but Mole recognized it at once. The moon, whispered Mole. It must have fallen down with me. He reached out to pick up the moon, but as soon as he touched it, it broke into pieces and vanished. Mole sat in the puddle and cried. Rabbit, Hedgehog, and Squirrel came running up. Are you all right, Mole? Asked Rabbit. I'm all right, sobbed Mole. But the moon isn't. I pulled it down and then I broke it and it was so beautiful and now I'll never see it again. Oh, Mole, said Rabbit. You couldn't have pulled down the moon and you couldn't have broken it, said Hedgehog. And you'll certainly see it again, said Squirrel. Look. High up in the sky above them, the moon was coming out from behind a cloud. Oh, whispered Mole, and it's just as beautiful as ever. Mole, Rabbit, Hedgehog, and Squirrel stood and stared up at the moon together. It is beautiful, said Rabbit. Very beautiful, said Hedgehog. Very beautiful indeed, said Squirrel. Yes, said Mole, but it's not as close as it looks. Was your prediction at the beginning of the story right, or did you have to revise it while I was reading? Did you predict that Mole would be able to bring down the moon? He wasn't able to, but he did learn an important lesson from his friends. The moon is not as close as it looks. Now that we've finished reading our story, I want to talk about the characters. Take a look at these pictures. Can you pick out the characters from the story? First, I'm going to look for the character who tried to bring down the moon. Can you find him? Here he is, Mole. Now can you find his friends from the story? Rabbit, Hedgehog, and Squirrel. Now let's think about the setting. Where did the story take place? In the woods? At the beach? Or in the city? Bringing down the moon took place in the woods. Setting is also about when the story took place. Think about what Mole was trying to knock out of the sky. Did our story take place in the day or at night? At night. How do you know it took place at night? What was in the sky that helped you know? The moon. Remember to check your teacher's webpage for links and assignments. I hope you enjoyed reading our story. I know I speak for all of your teachers when I say how proud we are of you. You have done a fantastic job this year, and I hope you have a great summer. And to my kids in my class who know how much I love pineapples, be a pineapple, stand tall, wear a crown, and be sweet on the inside. Bye!